everyone, Jessie from b.a.r.e Flower Farm. Today is Tuesday, September 26th. I took the day off from work today. We've got a busy market tomorrow. I wanted to tidy up this space. Not the greatest timing because it's super wet, but I am getting a lot of stuff done. I wanted to do a quick video around two things. One, an update on my thrip situation, and two, a update on second flushes. Now, in my second year of flower farming, I wish I had more out there in terms of resources and people talking about what second flushes look like. So I want to talk about that for my Yarrow, and then for my Feverfew, which ties into the thrips piece because I had to hack it all down. So I want to show you what they look like right now, and then some of my Rudbeckia. So there are definitely some failures, but also some successes here. So if you haven't been following me, the summary is that this year we had a abnormally dry and hot June. So I live in New Jersey in zone 6B, and typically our Junes are not as dry, I guess, but this one was pretty dry. In fact, we thought we were going to get a similar drought earlier this year. So luckily it just ended up being the month of June. But that was enough for me to have a thrips infestation just completely take off. It was like exponential growth. So I have a video that I did on thrips. It's part of my flower farmer classroom science series. So it's linked up here as well as below if you want to learn a little bit more about thrips. It got me down this entire rabbit hole to figure out how to manage my thrips. But ultimately I came to this conclusion that I needed to hack down everything that was infested, and it was getting all over the place. It started on my Feverfew, it moved to the Rudbeckia, it even moved to some of my white light sunflowers, my foxgloves, my nigella, things that like normally don't get thrips started getting thrips. And to be honest, if it has leaves, petals, it probably will have thrips if there's a big enough infestation. So I wanted to control it, and because of that I ended up hacking 3 varieties of Feverfew, of which I was growing 75 each. So that was like a whole 150-foot row of Feverfew. Now I ended up completely eliminating basically 2 of the varieties and keeping the magic single, which is your traditional looking Feverfew. That has come back, and I want to show you what that looks like right now. So here's the Feverfew patch. Before, it was all Feverfew except for this area over here, which I had planted 12 Plectranthus argentatus, which is silver shield. And then there's more Feverfew over here. So you can see that some of the ones that I hacked may have hacked a little bit too much. It then got overtaken by weeds, and then I unweeded it, and then it was like the Feverfew got a breath of fresh air. But look at this, it is now sending up shoots. Granted, it is not as tall as the first flush. I mean, first flush we were like up to here, but the thing is, no one needs 3-foot tall Feverfew, at least not for the most part. So even this is totally workable in bouquets. That might be a little bit shorter. I've been able to use a couple in some bouquets so far, but for the most part the second flush is coming. And this is particularly impressive because if you watched my video where I said I'm hacking everything down, I'll also link that below, you'll see that I cut the Feverfew really close to the base. There were no leaves. In fact, very little shoot growth too on top of the soil because I wanted to make sure I got rid of any leaves that might have had thrips on there. So it meant that the root system was strong enough to regenerate growth, both in the form of leaves as well as then subsequently these blooms. So I'm pretty impressed with how the plant did that in a relatively short amount of time. I mean, we're talking about from like July to now, so that's August, September, that's like 3 months that it did all of that, and I'm able to get blooms. So I am going to let this overwinter. I'm going to hack it down at the end of the season after frost, and then we are going to see how this does next year. So I would say that this is still totally sellable, especially for retail bouquets, but as well as florists. And as you can tell, there is no thrips on here. So super, super happy that I was able to get something out of my Feverfew crop. The next crop I want to talk about is Yarrow, which ended up being an unexpected favorite. So the reason why Yarrow is a favorite is because, one, it looks awesome. It's very cute. It comes in all of these pastel-y and berry sorbet type colors, but it's also a native here. So the good thing about natives is that it's not only a native, but it's also umbrella-like in terms of its form. So it makes it really easy for beneficials and pollinators to get their food from Yarrow. And what that means is that I had a ton of ladybugs, I had a ton of lacewings and other beneficials that you want around to eat pests like thrips because of the Yarrow. And then the bonus was that Yarrow just sold like hotcakes, especially at my florist co-op. I would say that next to lilies, Yarrow is now my second highest grossing revenue flower, and also one of my most profitable flowers because I only put in about 70 plants and I've sold quite a bit of Yarrow. I've sold like over $500 worth of Yarrow between the first and second flushes. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you back to a little bit over a month ago, August 22nd, to show you the beginnings of the second flush. I'm going to show you what I got off of that, and then I'm going to come back and show you what it looks like right now, another full month later. So I'm still getting that second flush. So I'm getting ready to harvest some of this Yarrow, and I just want to show you what the second flush looks like. It's definitely not as good as the first flush, but these stems are relatively decently long. Getting a good flush of the whites and the creams, and then you can see some of the apricots come in. So hacking this down before was a really great call, and you can see that there's still buds coming up. So I'm going to harvest and let's see how much we can get out of this. So this is the harvest of the Yarrow. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bunches, 2 of which the whites are already pre-committed. And then, you know, this is actually typically a pretty popular color, as well as this one. I find that when I bunch them up by light color, if not by single color, they sell the best. So I'm gonna let these condition. And even though some of these stems are short, they are still perfectly usable in like centerpiece arrangements, even like things like bridal bouquets, things that don't need very long stems. I mean, this one is longer as a bunch, but you know, some of these over here are definitely shorter, and I found that there is still a place for them in arranging, and especially at this time of year when really no one else has Yarrow. People are going to be less picky about it. So some of these bunches definitely have more than 10 stems. I mean, I think there's one bunch that had close to 20 because they're all smaller petite pieces. And that is something that I did say in the description when I was setting them up for pre-order. But on the market floor, they obviously get to see the product so they can make that assessment for themselves. But yeah, I mean, the Yarrow just keep on cranking out. I have a feeling I'm going to get more. We'll see how that stem length is, but I'm pretty happy with just what I'm getting out of the second flush, which I didn't even think was going to happen. So back to September 26th, a month and 4 days later, you can see there's definitely less blooms coming up, but the ones that are coming up are so long in length, and these are definitely better quality in terms of the head size. I harvested some already, so I'm just letting these do their thing today to be a little bit more mature. Again, with Yarrow, you want to make sure you do the wiggle test. So this one is on the fence right now. You see how it's still kind of flopping. So you want to make sure that it stops flopping before you harvest it. And I'm hoping that I will have at least 3-4 more stems ready because I have some pre-committed sold bunches. But again, Yarrow, because I was able to cut it down, I got this second flush, and I would say that the second flush was probably about as a third as productive as the first flush. Some of the stems being shorter, but now with the cooler weather, we are getting longer stems, and it did rain quite a bit. So I'm also getting just like sturdier stem quality. And hello, Chance, I do see you. We will fetch. Where's the ball? Where's the ball? Go get the ball. Go get the ball. Where's the ball, Chance? It's like, okay, reluctantly, I will go get the ball. He actually knows that he needs to get out of here. And if the gate was closed, he would use his big head of his to open the gate. And now he's gonna go find the ball. Let's see if he gets it quickly. Yay, he found it. And then this process just repeats. So I will often need to stop the camera to fetch with him. He's actually taking his time right now, but usually he comes back immediately. Last but not least, let's talk about Rudbeckia. Rudbeckia is probably my most disappointing crop this year, which is a surprise because plenty of people grow it really well. They get a great crop. My problem with Rudbeckia was aphids. I had just a ton of aphids around it, and surprising because I had some yarrow planted next to the Rudbeckia. I saw plenty of ladybugs, but it just was not enough for those Rudbeckia to overcome that aphid pressure. So what I did was I hacked down some Rudbeckia in July, and then I kind of did a test and control where I had some Rudbeckia that didn't get hacked down. I want to see what would happen. It obviously went to seed. I don't know what I was thinking at that time, but then I want to see if I would get a second flush. So again, I'm going to go back in time another full month before so that you can see what it looked like, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like today. So now we have arrived at our Rudbeckia bed. Now, if you remember, I did a bit of a deep chop, and you can tell a lot of them came back. They've come back with a lot less bug damage from both an aphid perspective because it's a bit warmer now, and obviously less beetle perspective because same thing. It's getting cooler actually. So I would expect the aphids to potentially come back. I am going to take a trimmer and trim this all the way through once again to hopefully get some blooms for the fall. Now you can tell that these blooms are, some of them are actually quite tall. I just haven't used them, and some of them are relatively short. So I think that they could still be good for jar arrangements in the fall. So we'll see what we get. And then these are the ones that I did not at all chop, and they're kind of going to seed over here. So yeah, you know, if I get something out of these, great. But if I don't, then at least I can know now that I will definitely get some sort of second bloom, even if it is a bit inferior. So back to present time. This is what my Rudbeckia looks like. There's not much. It does not look good at all. You can see that there is definitely some disease on the plant. They're not really shooting up blooms. I mean, like, yes, like we've got one over here. But for the most part, things did not go very well with the Rudbeckia. And it's not just because of the disease. It's also because you can see there's a lot of weeds over here. I did let the weeds overtake a lot of the field this year, and the Rudbeckia never came back. So I am done with this crop. When I have time, I'm going to completely take out this area. It will probably become like a raised bed area for when I grow ranunculus. We've got some more yarrow over here, so you can see not much of a second flush happening over here right now. But yeah, so, you know, Rudbeckia, I've grown it well last year, but this year it was a different story. And to be honest, it's just not one of those flowers that sells super well at my co-op to florists. And while they look great in bouquets, I'm trying to move away from these kind of ancillary non-focals in these mixed bouquets. And when I do an ancillary non-focal, I'm being very deliberate on what I grow. And if I have an experience like this, it's likely not going to make the cut for next year. There were a couple of other crops I mentioned that had gotten infested by thrips, foxglove being one of them. So let me show you what the foxglove looks like right now. They're not super exciting, but I'll just show you what they look like. This here is Foxy Foxglove that I put in this time of year last year. So you can see it does have some good leaf growth. And then I obviously cut down all of those that were going to seed. I might have missed a couple over there. So still shooting up some stems, but these are just too short to use. Again, the weeds kind of choked out the foxglove. So once I unweeded it, it really gave the foxglove new life. Now, the real question is, what happens if I keep them in here for another year? Like, what's going to happen to this? Will they flower? Technically, foxglove is a biannual, so they would flower in the second year, but these are hybridized so that they flower in the first year. If you know, if you've had experience with this, please leave it in the comments. I was actually trying to look this up and I was surprised I couldn't really find it anywhere online. So it's probably buried somewhere in like a magazine or some research papers that I just couldn't get a hold of. So let me know if you think that first year flowering foxglove, if left in the ground for subsequent winter, will it flower again next spring? And depending on what you guys say, this might get ripped out, or we might just leave it in here and see how it goes. I still have some Sweet William over here. That should definitely flower next year, so I am going to keep that in there. And this is what the rest of the field looks like. I really need to work on this mess over here. This has completely gotten taken over by weeds and kind of just like completely neglected it. But for the most part, I now feel like that things are kind of under control, at least in this area over here. And I've been meaning to do a video talking about how I'm shrinking my growing space. I have parts of it filmed and I will eventually get it together. But right now it's just a matter of winding down the season, prepping things for the fall, getting ready for tulip season, getting ready for overwintering some ranunculus, and of course, enjoying the beauty of dahlias at their height right now. So while I have you over here, this is my favorite dahlia this year. This is Westerton Lillian. And I have gotten fantastic vase life off of her. I mean, I am now in day 5 indoors of one of those. And as you can tell, I didn't stake it. So it's kind of leaning over and I staked it a little too late. But even then, I mean, I honestly have not really sold these to florists. These have just been for me to enjoy and in mixed bouquets. But I will definitely be saving these tubers and dividing them. And yeah, really excited for next year. All right, I hope you guys are having a great season. I would love to hear in the comments below if you've been getting second flushes of anything. I would think that theoretically anything that is like a cool flower that enjoys the cooler temperatures and shorter date lengths should be able to get a second flush. But as we all know, theory doesn't always come to fruition in real life. So let me know in the comments below what you're also getting second flushes of. That will also help me when I crop plan for probably next year in terms of what I want overwinter. It's a little bit late right now to start stuff from seed and overwinter, and it's hard to find plugs anywhere. But anyway, I hope this video is helpful and I will see you in the next video.